Hey guys, so I am now in the car. I have just recorded a full video for you, but because I was using those AirPods, what actually happened is that my voice was echoing when I played it back, so I'm going to have to record the whole thing again, probably 20 minutes, but hopefully I can make this more concise and better for you. What am I looking to do in this video? Well, I'm looking to have a look at a permanent job versus a contractual position. So you can get your permanent contract, your permanent work, like most people do. But if you've got LinkedIn, you will likely be getting offers of contracts. So 1 year contract at a daily rate. And within property, I've already mentioned in the past that it's quite helpful to have a trading business or some sort of money behind you to be involved in property. It's very hard to go straight into property with nothing and build everything just within property unless you're a good sourcer and stuff like that. But for the majority of us that have a job and are looking to get into property or are already in property, this might be a useful video. So I've assumed the permanent job is quite a high paid job. So that again will expose some things that shocked me a little bit. So imagine you have a permanent job with a salary of £120,000 a year, 120k. That would be a senior manager, leadership team director, someone pretty high up. Maybe not the CEO of a massive company, but someone really high up in any industry. It's a lot of money. You would think a person like that, £120,000 a year, they are ballers. They've got massive houses in the centre, they've got the latest cars, they've got everything. But the reality is they get hit by tax so much that actually, if they've got children, if they've got a house and a mortgage and a nice car, a lot of that salary disappears to zero very quickly. So actually, doing the calculation, if you're making £120,000 a year, you are taking home, after the tax, national insurance, pension, etc., you're taking home about £70,000 or about £5,800 a month. £5,800 a month is a lot of money. But remember, you could be on a minimum salary, maybe with a bit of commission, and you can be getting £2,000 a month. The difference is, on a minimum salary, you've got very little responsibility. You might just be putting crisps on the shelf in a Tesco supermarket like I was doing when I was younger. The minimum salary back then was a lot less, but you might just be doing that. £120,000 a year, you might be responsible for a team of 100 people or 50 people. It's a very big responsibility, and the uplift is decent, but it's not as big as you would expect. You could have legal responsibility at that sort of level. You might be signing documents, legal documents that are very important, and if something goes wrong, you could potentially be the one to blame. So a salary like this, because of how high the tax is, you're left with money that's reasonable, but nowhere near what it should be, in my opinion. Anyways, that's where you are if you're on a £120,000 a year job. Take it how it is. For me, it's a bit demotivating. It makes me not want to aim for that level just because of the added responsibility and time and stress of work versus the added salary. I don't think it's worth it. So what are the other options? Obviously, opening a business, and that's another video that I'll do another time. But let's have a look at those. I really want to discover those contract opportunities. So if you just left your job and went into a contract of 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, whatever it might be, at a daily rate, how would that work? So there is 2 ways of getting a contract. One is inside of IR35, and I've spoken to a few people who kind of explained that to me, and one is outside of IR35. IR35 is a regulation that UK government brought in because they love to regulate everything in this country. And basically what it means is that if you're outside of IR35, you open your own company, you then charge whoever you're working for through your company to be paying into that company. You then have your own accountant, you do your own financial accounts, profit and loss, and then you deal with the money that way. And inside IR35, an umbrella company gets opened up for you, everything gets passed through that almost automatically, and your take-home pay is determined almost like a job. You don't have too much say in what's going on there. The money comes in, and then tax comes out automatically, and then you get paid. So it's very similar to a job with less security, but usually better rewards. So if you were to move like for like, which never really happens, you wouldn't go from a permanent job of 120k onto a 120k contract job. You usually need an uplift. But if you did, outside of IR35, looking at your profit and loss, you'd have your income, you'd have to pay insurance, some liability insurance for those types of contracts. You have to pay more in pension because the employer is not going to pay you pension anymore. You can then take out a salary for yourself and pay the employer national insurance on that. Then you pay the corporation tax on your profits. You'll be left with £76,000. You'd pay the dividend tax if you want to take all of it out. You'll then take home another 60k, which is an overall take-home pay of 72,866. There might also be accountant fees, other fees that you have to pay on top of it, so it's slightly better than a permanent position in terms of how much you are taking home, but you've just lost the security. In a permanent position, you might be on that job for 20 years without too many issues. In a contract, a year might be done, you might be finished with what you've meant to be doing, and there might not be more work for you anymore, and you have to look for another place. So it's pros and cons, but it just shows you that going like for like probably doesn't work. Very few people do it exactly like that, because this post-tax profit, rather than just taking all of it out as a dividend, people take usually what they need out. Then they can have more expenses in the company, their IT equipment, their leased car, any legitimate expenses. I'm not tax advisor, by the way, so this is just something that I'm saying as an example. Then they reduce their tax, corporation tax. They can also take a smaller amount of dividend, which means that they leave more money in the company, and then in later years when their income is less, they can be taking more of that money out again, as and when they need to reduce that tax liability. Because tax is a lot. Let's be real, it's quite a lot in this country. So you don't want to avoid it, but you want to be tax efficient. You don't want to just get a salary, pay half of it in tax, and then realize that this was all a big mistake going this contract route. If you're inside IR35, £120,000, about £550 a day, your take-home pay will be 66,000. So you would actually lose money. But as I've said, if you are that sort of level, you'll be getting a much better daily rate. So this is a bit of a silly example, but just giving you a like for like of why you shouldn't transfer into the same salary for a contract. If we were to look at a decent uplift, so going from 120 to 180, so that's a 50% increase, really significant. Outside of IR35, let's look at the accounts there. We would have the income of 180, slightly bigger insurance, slightly bigger pension, same salary and national insurance, much higher taxable profit. That would be taxed in the company. You'd be left with 170k, and if you wanted to take all of it out, you would take home 87 plus your salary, which is around 100,000. So on 180,000, you would take home around 100,000. So if you're going from this permanent job to this, you're going from £70,000 take home to £100,000 take home, which is significant. It's very significant. It's an extra £30,000 take home. Remember, an extra £30,000 doesn't mean that you can get a promotion here for 30 grand, which is hard anyway, because that 30 grand will then be taxed. You'll probably be left with 15. So you probably have to get a similar promotion to about 180k to get to that sort of level. And as I've said, it's very unlikely you'll be at that. You'll probably be more, because you will take less tax out, you will keep more money in the company, and also you can open another company, a limited company with property, and you can use that money as a loan to buy property. Obviously consult an accountant on all this, but there are ways to really maximize your benefits with this sort of arrangement. If you went inside IR35, 180 grand will get you £90,000 a year. Again, 20 grand more, so quite significant, because again, 20 grand more, probably in the gross pay, equates to about 40, or around about 40 grand, so quite reasonable. So I suppose this gives you a picture of why people are going from a permanent job to a contract. You know, you could potentially get a lot more money take home if you're going through the structure. Inside IR35, if the daily rate is a bit better, that could be a good way to go. Like 180,000 is £820 a day. And sometimes you don't even have to have such a job and such a salary to move on to that. Sometimes you can be on 90, 100 grand a year, and you'll already be senior enough or experienced enough to move on to this type of contract. So there are a lot of benefits, but within your job, you have your pension getting paid, you have your holidays. As you serve more years, you've got other benefits. I've got private health insurance. There's other things that make you want to stay. There's share safe schemes. There's like a gym membership benefit in my company. So there's all those things that you need to consider that you would lose if you went into the contract. But really just do your calculation and see what's the daily rate, what's the difference in the salary, how much would I be spending, how secure or not secure is this, do I have a backup plan, so if after 6 months to a year I don't have this contract, can I apply for more jobs like the one I've got and get it? Is it going to be relatively easy? Can I get another contract? What's the market like? Really analyze that. And yeah, that's all the key research in here. I skipped the part where I did all these boring numbers, but hopefully this gives you an idea of a permanent job to fund property versus a contract job, again, to potentially fund the property. It's still a little bit shocking to me. I still can't get my head over the fact that somebody leading potentially a huge department within a massive company responsible for billions of pounds of projects can be getting £5,000 a month with that responsibility. I don't think it's quite right. I think the tax is a bit too high in that system, but I don't have the authority to just go and change it. I'm just here to analyze, show you guys the raw numbers and the key data, and sort of discover with use how things work. So hopefully this video gave you a bit of good insight. I'm looking forward to analysing more in the next video. Thank you.